morning everyone, my name is Tatiana Olag and I'm a marketing executive here in Hornbill. I would like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar where we'll be having a preview of how to use third parties and contracts with Chris Ware, our Hornbill applications consultant. Just to inform you, delegate audio will be muted during the presentations to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. However, if you have any questions during the presentations, please type it into the GoToMeeting question facility, which you will find on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll collect questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend, and I will now pass you over to Chris.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. In today's Academy we'll be exploring the contracts option and the third-party contracts, so the two different types of contracts that are offered in Supportworks, both of which have different purposes and provide different functionality, and hopefully we'll be able to see what benefit they can add to the functioning of your service desk. So we've got organisation contracts, or we could call them service desk contracts. These are really great for managed service providers, giving you the ability to say what contracts are applied to an organisation. Encapsulates lots of information with the agreement between the organisation supported and your service desk, so that you can have a look at what's covered under that contract and the information that's in it. Difficult to make sure you don't confuse them with SLAs, but there's a little bit of overlap there, and you might have a number of SLAs covered by that contract as well. So we also have third-party contracts, which we'll come on to a bit later on, and these are agreements with suppliers, and also give you the ability to assign calls against them and use them as an extension to your service desk. Not a massive amount of information stored against each of these types of records, so we'll actually go through and have a look at how this is captured in Supportworks. So the organisation contracts, I'll just have a look at the information that can be stored against them. So and we'll go into the system and explore through these in just a minute. We've got the details tab. We've got an associated information tab. If we start with the details tab, so we'll go into Supportworks itself. Sorry, just find Supportworks. Where's it gone? There it is. Okay, so to find these contracts, go into an organisation, load that up on the screen. Eventually, and it just seems to be a bit delayed for some bizarre reason. Here we go. Took a little while there, but it's come back to life. And under the organisation details, we've got the contracts. So if we open up this contract here called General Support, a contract I provided earlier, we've got the main details tab, which gives us the name of the contract, the details, the type, and again you can add to this list by using your simple lists from within general settings. So if the type that is already populated doesn't exist, then you can add to that further. What the period of this contract actually covers, so is it an annual, is it a 3-year or whatever. A review period, you can't populate from here, but we'll have a look at the reviews and things a little bit later on. And who within the service desk and within the business are responsible for being the point of contact for this particular contract. And we've got a description here, which is just a free text box. Get the right presentation bit on. Okay, then we've got the associated information tab, so we can associate SLAs, CIs and services, and again they're shown with what ones are associated, and you just simply associate them by actions and associate and then find the agreement that you're actually looking for, and the same applies for your configuration items, services, as you go through those. The difference with services is when you can actually have some support units against those, and I'll have a look at those in a bit more detail as we go through. We also can store references, so if we've got additional documentation against the contract, we can actually store that within here. So that might be on your network, and it's just a URL or a network path that then allows you to view that document and share that within there, so that people don't have to go off and look at that one. As you can see there, that document there is stored on the C drive, and if you were to open that up, then that would appear there. Much better to have a network path rather than a local drive, because we won't be able to find that particular one on this machine. We've also got the ability to store pricing against that, so any contract and any services that you're going to be offering, you may want to look at actually working out some pricing and what that actually costs, so that you can reflect that either back to the customer or start to show the value of this contract within the organisation. You can basically then allow that to show the breakdown of that costing. So here, because we've already got a service level agreement, which in itself has some costings against it, it then allows you to see the price of that. We've then got configuration items, and if they had costings against them, that would then be displayed, and the services, if you're offering those services, what the cost of those are. And if you then have those items in doing so, you could say, actually, for this contract we do have a standard price for some of these things, but we've agreed either a discount or an inflation, if you've been a bit clever, to actually say for this particular contract this is going to cost us this little bit more. So the contract record within Supportworks holds more information and allows you to then record and store that against there. Functionality wise, it then allows us to use this to ensure that we're managing our contracts and the agreements that we have with our customers and with our within our service desk, and this is where we then move on to have a look at certain other things to help us control those. So when do these contracts come up? When do we need to discuss them, review them, putting them in so that they don't get missed, so that we can keep on top of them. We can set up these alerts and the time periods that these come in. So we can either set up a specific alert to say we're going to do this at this point in time, so a month before, or things, but we've got several different options, and we'll see when we have a look at those tabs. So we can have a bespoke time, so just a time when we actually say we're going to actually pop up and say, right, we will do this on this date in particular. We can have a configured time period. So within the general settings, there are time periods that you can set up. So things like your financial end of year, you might have might run April to March with your financial year, so you can actually reflect that in a time period and then use that time period within the contract to actually say we need to do this before our financial end of year to make sure that that agreement's in place. Monthly, weekly, I won't offend you by going into what those might be. And we've also got a unit threshold, which is related to the number of support units that you can actually use against those times. When these alerts are used, they will then trigger the email or the messenger notification to whoever you set that up to be. And if we just have a look at those in the actual system, so as you can see here, there is a review that's been set, and that is actually based on the period that we actually set. So the owner and the sponsor should actually be looking at this contract at this particular time. So this is at the financial end of year, which is our time period that we've set up within the system, and we're going to do that on the 5th day. And then doing so, we'll actually email the service manager, and we'll use the help desk and an email template set up from your bulk email templates that actually says, look, this is now due to be reviewed, and do that. One thing to note when you're actually setting up these alerts, what you'll need to do is make sure that the VPME script that does this control is actually scheduled to run. So there's a VPME script called ITSM check SW SLAD, which will go through and check the notifications there. And for contract expiry, there's a ITSM check contract expired VPME. So you just have to set that up in the scheduler of the Supportworks server, and make sure that runs and does a nightly run, so that any get picked up, and so the contracts will be put into the database, and then the emails triggered at that time and sent to the right people when necessary. So moving on to another area of functionality within here that allows you to control what's actually being made available with these contracts, is the concept of support units. Possibly not used a great deal within an internal service desk, but you might be able to set up that you do some cross-charging or something with different departments if you wanted to. That says they have a certain amount of units or things that they can actually log with you. But this is where for the duration of the contract, or the agreement that you have, is that you will be able to log and track the number of agreed units that are being used for calls that are logged with the service desk and under this contract. And so a customer may purchase a block of calls that then allows them to call off either one by one, and it will count down, and then you could use the review periods and the alerting to actually indicate that a customer has actually logged 200 calls in the period, and actually they're starting to use too many and getting too low on what they've actually purchased, and then move through to agree either to add to this contract, or at the point of these expiring you use them up and they've got to purchase some more. So we've got different types of units that we can have. So we've just got a sort of arbitrary unit, just a number. It can be whatever it needs to be, or we can have days, hours within there. So, and you can set how many are available. So by default they're set to unlimited, but if we untick the unlimited, then you can define how many are actually available. Just look into Supportworks there to that. So on this particular contract here, we've got 490 available units, and we've set it so that the contract or service association gives us a default method to actually take off the number of units that are used, and as we can see there, that would be 10 per call. We could set it so that we actually use the default, so that actually then takes it as 5 every time a call is used, and every time something happens against that, the audit trail will actually knock that down. So they started with 500, and 5 came off and 5 more came off when those calls were logged. So in order for us to use those properly, just save those changes. When we raise a call, either an incident or a service request, we can actually find that. Why is that not coming up? There we go. A typo there somewhere. We can actually select our contract. So there's our general support contract against this call. So this will be being used for that. And just put in the call details. We'll keep everything else as default. We'll just accept that and view the details. We'll do everything else, go through the standard incident process, etc., through to actually resolving it. And then when we come to put in our resolution, we actually get a support unit. So here it's already defaulted it to 5. We could up that because we actually feel that we've spent twice as long. You might want to justify that when doing so. Just leave that as 5. When we resolve that call, we'll actually complete that off, and we'll be able to go back into our contract, and we'll see from our audit trail that a further 5 units have been taken off of that, whatever those 5 units relate to, and they now have 485 left. We could say actually they've purchased more to refresh their total back up to 500. In doing so, the audit trail will bump that back up, and give you that information against there. You have to make sure that the contract is associated to the call in order for this to take place. And that's as far as the organisation contracts go. So we've got the different options there. That's the functionality that is within there. So it's a useful capture of some good information, and allows us to raise prompts and track how we're counting off the support within the system without being overly complicated. So it can help us with managing those areas that actually can bypass us quite quickly if we're not, and give us that extra level of control around our agreements within the organisation. So moving on to our third-party contracts. So our organisational contracts are with sort of either our customers or our internal organisation or who we're supporting. Our third-party contracts are helping us work with our suppliers and allowing us to sort of see how our agreements with our contractors and suppliers actually work through. So in order for us to have a contract against a third party, we actually have to have a third party supplier set up, and they appear in the service desk view and appear down in that list and give us that ability to be able to see those, and they'll be used against CI. So when you purchase a piece of software or a piece of hardware, you can actually say who's been supplying that. You then may have numerous different contracts that actually are being supported with those. Or certain items may be part of one contract or several. We can then use that, because it's part of the service desk structure, and we can use it to assign calls to our third party. So instead of things remaining with the service desk, we can actually sort of see that we've assigned these calls out and had to get the third party involvement. I say multiple contracts per supplier based on those agreements. So depending on when you purchase pieces of kit or whether you added certain things to an existing contract, you can do those. So I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail on suppliers, and you can have a look at that through the system, but you do have to make sure that you have created a supplier and that a supplier actually has provided you with a piece of hardware or another configuration item before you can then start to use those contracts to assist with the call handling process. So if we have a look at the contract, we're effectively storing the service levels agreed in the contract with the supplier when they actually deal with our instance raised to them. And sometimes this is an area that actually gets bypassed when doing our service level agreements with our business, especially within an internal organisation. We say, oh yes, we'll set up our priorities and we'll deal with these if everything goes down within that period. But actually, there isn't any way of being able to do a 4-hour fix, because if a server goes down, we've only agreed to a next day on site service with our supplier. These underpinning contracts actually do affect our SLAs that we are able to provide to the business. So we have a look at our suppliers' contracts within here. So within the service desk, we've got one here, Chris's third party. We have a contract. We have a look at those properties. We've got the contract details, the name. We've got our service level, so what's their response and fixed time, what's their agreement with that, what time period does it cover, so when did we start this agreement, when does it start and finish. Again, we can set up review periods so that we can actually say that we're going to have a review of that on a particular day, and we can then set up to email the service desk and give a put name in, so we can keep track of these. We just add that in. We can actually then see when the next review is, and we can be alerted and everything else on those. We've got there the option for descriptions. We can then see what configuration items are supported in that contract, and if I just open up one of these and have a look at the details, we have to say that this item was supplied by this third party. if that's not populated, when we try and associate a contract, it will tell us that that is not being provided by that particular person. So that supplier is not supplying this configuration item, therefore we cannot associate it to associate the contract. So we can only associate contracts that sit under the third party that is actually supplying this piece of kit, or this particular item. We've got an audit trail on here as to what's been added, so we can see, you know, whether who or what actually added within that, and then we can see the requests that have been raised and who's been assigned to those, and we can a little error message there will pop up to have a look at that one. What particular ones are breached when with that particular third party. So the key functionality when you've set up third-party contracts is actually being able to assign incidents to third party and have them deal with it. Now, they're not going to log in and actually use your service desk, but it gives you that ability to almost move it out of the way of the analyst queue and pop that in there. So we do it in the same way as we would do when assigning it to an analyst ourselves. So we actually go in here. Just going to take one of my existing incident here. We could actually say that this particular incident is going to be dealt with by our third party. So we're going to assign the call, find our third party suppliers, assign it to the contract, and then place an update in here. We've got the option there to place the actual call on hold, and that call will then take that from that queue and place it within there. Now, once the third party's given, actually told us that they're going to be dealing with that, don't forget to put in your call reference here so that you can actually, when chasing them up or conversing with them, you've actually got a cross-reference there. That's breached its SLA. Let's put my breach reason in to actually, so that you know that you've got your call reference and their call reference. So don't forget to put that in as you go through and complete that. Now, once you've assigned that call to the third party, you can either just deal with that by making sure that you have then phone calls and the analyst and keep tabs on it and work through, or you can use autoresponder to actually help automate that interaction. So you can actually pull their responses and use the autoresponder to update the calls accordingly and do that. Now, one of the key things with this particular function is making sure that you don't just set it up and then start firing emails to the third party. You've got to make sure that you've actually agreed the format and sort of triggering an email and allowing them to respond in a way that is actually then going to be picked up. You have to make sure that you can do that. Otherwise, you're going to get in a bit of a mess, and you might end up with call references that match theirs or get confused, and you'll update their system for the wrong call or whatever, depending on how you work together. So make sure that you've agreed that method with them before you set that up. If you do get that set up, and it's quite handy if you can, there are different actions that you can actually automate with the autoresponder and triggering emails. So when you assign the call, they accept it. So their email back in will actually then say that they've accepted it and mark their response as completed against their SLA, against their contract SLA, the timers. They've then got any further updates that they can complete. If you assign tasks instead of actual incidents or service requests, so the service desk keep ownership of the actual incident, then you assign a task to actually for the third party to complete. They will then update that. So there's a slight difference in there. That could be quite a nice way of being able to keep track of your incidents, so they're still with your service desk, but have the suppliers actually interact with a specific task that they have. And lastly, when they've actually completed that resolution, so they complete the resolution and then that then sets the call as resolved, and the service desk are then able to go back to the customer and actually make sure that what they did was actually satisfactory. If you, a bit too quick, the rules that are set up for that are actually detailed on our YouTube page, and the configuration there that is detailed to actually show that. So use the step-by-step videos to actually to set those up on your Supportworks server. If you're using the auto replies, or if you're not using the auto replies, you can still update on behalf of the actual third party itself by being in the context of the third party. So I'm logged in as ITSM, but I've updated it on behalf. So if they just send in an email and you update it manually, or you've done a phone call, you can still update that and it will still indicate who did that. And in a very sort of brief way, that again is the functionality that you can use with third-party contracts. So unless there's any questions that wish to be asked, that's
thank you very much, Chris. We have a couple of questions that just came through, so do you mind just reading them out? And if you give us a couple of seconds to read out the question, that would be great.
Okay, so we've got one question here. If the underpinning contracts have a P1 to 4 system, ranging contract times, how do you work that into the supplier contract, into your own contract to your own customer? So referring to third-party supplier contracts, against an individual contract, it's not possible to have different priorities set, but you can have multiple contracts in there. I believe the understanding has sort of generally been created that those third-party contracts actually you generally have a for individual configuration items. So a server generally have a single response fixed time against those. Maybe that's moved on since these were created, but it is generally intended that each individual CI has that one response and fixed time. So if it does have a different priority, although you'd have that within your service desk to actually do that better for your customers, your suppliers may only have that one. If they're actually, so if we just have a look at that one for that, we could actually set it, so just go into this particular one here, we can have multiple contracts, multiple third-party contracts, against a particular CI. So if we were to have a different one, that has different timings, just set that up in here. You can actually, I believe you can, done it. Just pop that in there. We've now got two contracts in there. If I just go into the original contract, there. We can actually associate a second one, so it's then covered and you can flag those accordingly. If there's a better way, then maybe that's a feature request to put forward, but and then we'll be able to see that that one is actually supported by that contract as well. Hopefully that answers that for you, Simon.
So we'll read through just one question.
So we've got another question here. Can updates from the supplier come in using another method, e.g. using the APIs? Provided there's the APIs available to them, then I don't see why not. You can connect up using the APIs as long as you get all of the parameters correct and push those through. Then yes, there's various APIs that would have to look through the documentation, but it'll be the on-call assign and who gets assigned to that. Hope that answers those for you.
Okay, I didn't see any more questions coming through, so Chris, thank you very much for taking us through that. I hope everyone found it useful, and if you have any further questions, please let us know. You can either email myself or your relationship manager and we'll get back to you with answers. Just to let you know, we've recorded this session and it will be available on Supportworks YouTube channel later on today. I will email you the link with the recording. And I would like to take this opportunity to remind you about our Hornbill user group taking place in London and Manchester on the 5th and 11th of November. So if you haven't done so yet, please have a look and register and join us for the event. And finally, thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you also join us for the next webinar, which is on the 15th of October. We'll be taking a look at the investigative tips in Supportworks. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.